All right, so now we are streaming live. Let me get this angle together here. How about that? There we go. I like it better. There we go. Hey, what's happening? We're streaming live now on two formats and two platforms. Spreaker, if you're listening on Spreaker, you're hearing this as a audio stream, and we have the new live video stream, and that's over on the 15 Minutes of Flame YouTube page. And if you have signed up, I think I've got about 95 people that have subscribed to this channel already. So let me just give you the coordinates once again. That's 15 Minutes of Flame, OV, FLAME, over on YouTube and, of course, on Spreaker. So you're getting this in not one, but two formats. So what's going on out there, everyone? It's been a while since we've convened on a weekday for an adrenaline blast, a shot to your third eye, a crystalline bullet to your third eye, hopefully awakening you to what's happening in the world on a daily basis. We tend to keep things topical on 15 Minutes of Flame. And by the way, it is my goal to keep 15 Minutes of Flame around 30 minutes each day, because I know that you have things to do. I know that there are pieces of your life that you have to attend to. Am I right? I'm right. So what is happening out there in the world today? Well, just a little bit of business here, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have not been to my website lately, that's robertphoenix.com. I urge you. I did a live stream on Sunday night, an astrology live stream, the 11th house, and there's a lot of good information in there. I break down a lot of charts, and there was some information for the week ahead, which you are now currently in. Also, there is a new interview up with myself and Emily Moyer, and that's over on Off Planet. And today I'm speaking with Regina Meredith, and we're going to talk about the astrological forecast for fall of 2018. Year's almost over. How about that? We are in the 9th month, only 3 months left to 2018. Holy shit. It's been a bolt train of experience for many of us. A very unusual year. They all seem to be more unusual than the previous years, don't they? Although 2016 was pretty hard to top. 2016 with the malfunctioning Hillary models was really hard to top. I went back and looked at some of that stuff, man. We tend to forget very quickly what was going on then. And there wasn't a day where there didn't seem to be a malfunctioning Hillary. Apparently, this is what I've heard, that the big bodyguard, the big brother, literally and figuratively, the big brother that was ready there with the EpiPen, her handler, the guy who talked her down from that weird kind of manic moment where she was like forgetting things. That was so strange. It was like she hit like a black hole in her brain. You know, there are rumors that Hillary Clinton is suffering from Kuru disorder. And if you're not familiar with Kuru, it is also related to mad cow disease, which results in the eating and the consumption of human flesh. And there seems to be an uptick in Kuru-like symptoms through our society, where people experience MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all very similar to the neurological degenerative disorders, or the degenerative disorder that Kuru actually is. And there is a theory that the reason why we have such a great preponderance of MS, Parkinson's, to some extent Lou Gehrig, Alzheimer's, is that maybe perhaps we are actually consuming ourselves through the food products that we eat. Would it surprise you? Would it surprise you that somewhere in the commercialized food chain, there are a few ground up body parts along the way? Wouldn't surprise me at all, to be honest with you. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Because there's always somebody willing to make a buck somewhere. Am I right? Yes. There's even the potential that human body parts, desiccated flesh, what have you, are part of the bone meal or it's not bone meal, but it's part of like the corn meal, which probably has a little bit of bone, maybe mammalian bone, that are fed to cows. So there's a possibility that this unhealthy kind of food chain starts there. So we watched Hillary Clinton in 2016, whatever model of Hillary Clinton it was. That was like a great game, wasn't it? Trying to like match up, these various Hillary Clintons. Look at that ear, look at that forehead, and there's, oh, let me get back to the guy, the brother with the EpiPen. Apparently he's dead. Somebody told me he died. He's gone. Really? Is that a fact? Was he extracted? Was he just moved out of circulation? But I've heard the rumor that he's gone. I cannot confirm or deny it. Maybe somebody in one of the various chat rooms can confirm or deny it. That's possible. Anyway, 2016 was very weird. 2017, it's kind of up there. Just wait till after the midterms. Things are going to get very hairy because we are going to be in the cyclotron. We're going to be in that cyclotron basically from the end of the midterms all the way up through 2020 when we have that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January of 2020. It all starts the day after the midterms when the nodes change. The nodes go from Leo to Cancer and from Aquarius to Capricorn. And I also had a great broadcast with Heather Eland. We did that yesterday. A lot of media over the last few days. Yeah, it's kind of productive. I'm not sure I feel all that productive, but it is on some level. All right, so let's get into the bulk of the conversation today. What I want to talk about is the latest chapter on Colin Kaepernick, and of course, hundreds and thousands, literally hundreds of other people are going to talk about Colin Kaepernick and the latest move by Nike. Everybody's going to put their spin on it. So I'm going to do my best, put my spin on it as well. I have a very interesting relationship with Colin Kaepernick. I've talked about this before. And I followed Colin Kaepernick from the time that he was drafted by Jim Harbaugh in the San Francisco 49ers. He was a second-round draft pick out of the University of Nevada, Reno. And as a physical specimen, Colin Kaepernick was unique. He was 6'4", a little on the thin side. He probably weighed about maybe 225. He had to really eat a lot to stay bulked up. If you look at him now, he's very thin, and there's just no way he can be playing pro football. Trust me on this. He went from a carnivore diet to a vegan diet, thanks to his Yoko Ono-like girlfriend, Nessa. So he does not have the diet. He didn't have the physique to begin with. He's very, very thin. So in order for him to play, he had to lift weights. He had to get bulked up. He's not doing that now. And I'm not criticizing Colin Kaepernick. He has the right to make a choice with his life. He's certainly made some choice, although there are some people who believe that his choice is misinformed or guided by other people who have an agenda. And I might agree with that, to be honest with you. Nessa seems like a pretty controlling person in a lot of ways. But look, Kaepernick has given consent to whatever he's going through. So I followed him early on. And I watched a lot of his video from when he played at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I thought, well, this guy's a pretty amazing athlete. And I knew it would only be a matter of time before he would actually wind up being the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, I was looking at his astrology, and it was a very unique case because Kaepernick is a Scorpio, and then the current quarterback at that time was Alex Smith, who is a Taurus. So they're opposite signs and they're rivals. And I noted a game on the schedule because Alex Smith was going through his Saturn return, Saturn in Scorpio. So he was going to have to deal with Scorpios. That was going to be his kind of life lesson to transform a number of his attitudes, beliefs, whatever they were. And I saw a game on that. So I knew that he and Colin Kaepernick were going to be rivals because, number one, they were opposites. Number two, Alex Smith has Saturn in Scorpio. And there was a weekend, and I looked at it on the schedule. They were going to play the Los Angeles Rams. And at that point in time, Saturn was going to be exactly opposite Alex Smith's sun. I thought, well, this is going to be the moment. This is where Alex Smith gets injured and Colin Kaepernick takes over, and we never see Alex Smith as the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers again. And that indeed occurred. And Colin Kaepernick was inserted, and they were off on their blitzkrieg to the Super Bowl. Colin Kaepernick is an uber Scorpio. He's got Sun-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. So he seized on the opportunity, and he became a lightning rod in a lot of ways for his physicality, his tattoos. This was a guy that very quickly advertisers and sponsors wanted a part of. He was an incredible physical specimen, dynamic. Not sure he's very charismatic, but he was dynamic. And clearly he had the right branding with all the tattoos. I think one of his first commercials was with Beats. And there's a famous scene, commercial where he's rolling up to a game against the Seattle Seahawks, and there are fans there, and they want to murder him. I mean, it's a really violent commercial. You look at how they portray these people, it's like he's going to a Klan rally or something. And, doesn't faze him. He's listening to Aloe Black, that artist. He's got his Beats on, and man, he's in his own world. He's in his own private Idaho, so you get to tune out the world with Beats. And I think he had a few other commercial spots during that time, but it was the Beats sponsorship that was pretty significant. So I called the fact that Colin Kaepernick, so I was connected to him in a very interesting astrological way. And as I began to study more about him and learn more about his life, I found it to be very unusual. And his mother lives in Denver, Colorado. She gave him up for adoption when he was quite young. And he is estranged from his mother. He was raised in Turlock, California, after being adopted in Wisconsin and taken very quickly to California, where he became a San Francisco 49er fan. So he got to play for the team that he grew up loving in a lot of ways, even though as a young boy, he was born in Wisconsin, and that's Green Bay Packer territory. So his mother was estranged, and she had reached out to him on a number of occasions, trying to make amends, and he was not going to bite on that apple. Sun, Pluto conjunction, Scorpio, Aries moon. No, it ain't happening. So he had some really intense unresolved mother issues, and probably still does to this day. And then, of course, he gets into the kneeling controversy. Now, what happened is that he had been demoted. The 49ers coach, Jim Tomsula, had demoted him from the starting quarterback position and was playing a guy by the name of Blaine Gabbert, who wasn't very good. So Kaepernick, out of, I think, more disgust and pouting and actual planned out civil disobedience, was just sitting down near the water cooler during the national anthem. Like he'd had it. And who knows, maybe it was his handler, a.k.a. Nessa, but he'd had it. And there were pictures that were surfacing that said, hey, look at Kaepernick. He's sitting down during the national anthem. He's being disrespectful. Of course, that's where the brouhaha and the uproar started. So Kaepernick had a conversation with a guy. What's his name? Nate Boyer. He went to UT. Kind of an interesting guy. He was one of these Army Ranger dudes. Went over to Iraq. I think he got back. He was 26 years old. Somehow he managed to get a scholarship to the University of Texas, and he was a long snapper, which means he snapped the ball to the punter. And it's a very specific kind of role. Every team has a long snapper. One guy, that's his only job, snap the ball to the punter and then run downfield. So Nate Boyer, I believe, had a little stint, a little cup of coffee with the Seattle Seahawks. And he, at some point, he consulted with Colin Kaepernick and said, you know, you really should kneel. You should kneel. It's more respectful. So the kneeling part actually came out from this ex-Army Ranger guy. Who knows what his role is, right? Is he Army intelligence? Is that what Nate Boyer's role was? Is he another one of Kaepernick's intentional or unintentional handlers? Anyway, let's get up to speed. Kaepernick was actually offered, he had a contract with the 49ers that allowed him to opt in. Like, he could have stayed with the 49ers. A lot of people don't realize this. He could have played in Denver. John Elway wanted to trade for him, although he would have had to take a bit of a salary cut. So there were options. There were plain options for Colin Kaepernick before he started to kneel, or even after he was kneeling. He thought that he could leave the 49ers and every team in the NFL would want his services. He was damaged goods, so he'd been hurt the previous season, and not everybody was so sure that he'd made a sufficient physical comeback. So now we have damaged goods, and we have somebody who is a divisive and polarizing presence. Now, all we have of Kaepernick is these images early on of him kneeling. Now, he does good acts, apparently. He buys suits for ex-convicts and donates money. So he's become a quote-unquote philanthropist, right? But we don't know what his position is on anything anymore because he doesn't do any interviews. He won't do any interviews. Now, they may say, well, you know, there's a suit going on against the NFL, which there is. He's suing the NFL. And the suit is about collusion, that the NFL owners have colluded against Colin Kaepernick because they don't want him as part of the league. It's their business. They can hire and fire anybody they want. So they may be able to actually say, well, the league is colluding, but they're colluding because they can. There's a difference. So that's, maybe they're using that as an excuse as to why Kaepernick is not giving any interviews. All right, let's get you up to the present. So Nike just announced a deal with Kaepernick, and he's got a sponsorship, a pretty significant sponsorship. Let's see the details here. This is from Yahoo. I think it's a $3 million deal. Is that it? Which isn't a huge amount of money when it comes to sponsorships. The ad campaign is unusual. It's a very unusual ad campaign. It's a big black and white photo of Colin Kaepernick. It's a close-up of his face. And Kaepernick has always looked like he might be Eritrean, Ethiopian. He has this look of somebody from the Fertile Crescent. So here's the tagline: believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Just do it. Now, Nike's symbol, the swoosh, is a symbol of Saturn. And if you look around, you'll see companies all over the globe that have a symbol of Saturn as their logo, because Saturn is the ruling energy of this planet. Although that is going to come to an interesting test in January of 2020. Will we liberate ourselves from Saturn with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020? Is that possible? I say absolutely right, it's possible. Remember, this Saturn cycle starts the day after the midterms. The day after the midterms. I'm on record and will be on record with Regina, even though they're saying that that the blue wave or the blue tide is rising. I don't think that's going to be the case. On the day of the election, the North Node, is going to be at 0 Leo. And that represents royalty and the ruling class and the elite. Now, what I'm going to share with you may contradict that just a little bit, because the elite are on both sides of the ledger sheet. And this is clearly determined way back in the 1970s and the early 80s by Anthony Sutton, who wrote a book about power and using skull and bones as his template for power, and how he discovered that on both sides of the left and the right paradigm, there were incredibly powerful people that Skull and Bones was pumping out. He could cite, well, there was William F. Buckley over on this side. He was very powerful from a conservative perspective. John Kerry is another example on the left. Even the election between Kerry and Bush might be a more salient kind of comparison. They both came out of Skull and Bones. And there you go. That is the model. And it's the Hegelian dialectic. And the Hegelian dialectic is something that Anthony Sutton brought into the world. So when we look at these decisions from a corporate perspective, like, why is Nike doing this? First of all, there might be a subtext with this, which I may or may not agree with, but it's Stefan Mullen who brought this up. And he basically says that this is the same admonition that a terrorist would have. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Is that what a terrorist would do? And then just below it, just do it. Just do it. Is this a trigger? Is this what this campaign is about? Are there Manchurian candidates out there in sleeper cells that are going to see this campaign? Is this some kind of deeper context that is meant to alert certain people that this is the time? I don't know. Emily and I talked about that. We talked about images and messages that are embedded in culture that are like code. And is this blatant, hidden, in plain sight code? Is this what this ad campaign is about? One has to wonder, because Nike is a very smart company. This is one of the most successful companies on the planet. And they probably understood that if they did this and offered this shoe and apparel deal with somebody who doesn't even play professional sports anymore, and somebody who's polarizing as Colin Kaepernick, that they might see a hit in their bottom line. And clearly they have. And this is from Yahoo. Shares of Nike Inc. fell 3% on Tuesday as calls for a boycott of the sportswear giant gained traction on social media following its choice of Colin Kaepernick as a face for the 30th anniversary of its Just Do It slogan. So they have picked him. 30th anniversary of Just Do It. That's 3 10-year cycles. Correct? Former San Francisco quarterback Kaepernick, the first NFL player to kneel during the national anthem as a protest against racism, posted a black and white close-up of himself on Instagram on Monday featuring the Nike logo and Just Do It slogan, along with the quote, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." Now, of course, that refers to Kaepernick, who sacrificed theoretically his entire career. He's being made into a martyr. And Colin Kaepernick had a choice. He had a choice. He had a choice. He could have had an activist life and been a professional athlete. Malcolm Jenkins, who plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, is doing it, although a bit awkwardly. He is doing it. So this is ridiculous that he had to sacrifice his life And here's the martyr, because he believed in something bigger than his football career and all the trappings and fame and glory. He fits a profile. He fits a profile, an advertising profile. Nike is trying very, very hard to get into the minds and psyche and the pocketbook of young millennials. I'm talking young millennials, anywhere between 25 and say 30. Because the generation below them, the very young kids, I'm not sure they're going to be that ideologically moved by Colin Kaepernick. Now, LeBron James might be a different story. That's another Nike product. And LeBron James is a fetish of Saturn. He is a Capricorn, obviously. And I've talked about it before, how he's almost has this avatar-like status that is being promoted by Nike and some of his handlers, including Warren Buffett. Got a comment here in the chat room. Let's see what's going on in the chat room. Let's check it out. Let's see what we got. Here we go. 20 minutes. Spreaker doesn't notify quick enough. So glad you're back with the flame, Robert. Thanks, Lori. Yeah, like I said, there are two ways you can listen to this. There's one over on Spreaker and also on YouTube. And when this is all said and done, I'll be putting links on my Facebook page where you can come and visit. You'll know where it's at. And hey, sign up. Sign up for the YouTube live stream. And remember, when you sign up for a subscription, you got to hit that bell, because it's the bell that will remind you of when I'm doing this. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right, let's go back to Colin Kaepernick. Quickly here. And let's talk about the Nike piece. This is interesting. Let's see. Over 30,000 people were tweeting with the hashtag Nike boycott on Tuesday morning, U.S. Eastern Time, making it among the top trending topics on Twitter. Some posted images of themselves burning and ripping their Nike shoes and apparel. I'm sure Nike likes this. They're saying, okay, well, let's do this thing with Kaepernick. Well, we're going to be some blowback and some backlash, and maybe people will burn some of our shit. And they're like, okay, that's fine. We'll get some benefit from that. Maybe they do it themselves. Wouldn't be surprised. Any publicity is good publicity. There's a picture of some Nike basketball shoes are on fire. What does that mean? Their soles are burning, right? You see the flames coming up, burning soles. A lot of interesting imagery here. Of course, there's Saturn there, the swoosh. Saturn, the god of hell on this planet in many ways. Let's see. First, the @NFL forces me to choose between my favorite sport and my country. I chose country. Twitter user @SClancy79 said in a post retweeted 16,000 times. Then @Nike forces me to choose between my favorite shoes and my country. Since when did the American flag and the national anthem become offensive? Well, there would be people that would say, well, Colin Kaepernick is being a good American. He's actually acting out his right to be somebody who has a voice and use that voice accordingly. And he does. He absolutely does. 100%. Somehow I think that if maybe this was Sam Bradford, who plays quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, and is about as white as the Pillsbury Doughboy in a lot of ways, that if Sam Bradford was doing this, I don't think Nike would be making such a big deal out of it. But Kaepernick fits a mold, and he fits a very specific demographic mold. He is biracial, mixed, however you want to use that term. He is the face of a world that is based on diversity. Colin Kaepernick is a symbol of diversity. But what did that diversity spawn? It spawned an antipathetic relationship with his birth mother. He won't even talk to her. Won't even talk to her. And at this point, I'm not even sure how he feels about his adopted parents. I think at some point Kaepernick had to do a hard left with his life experience, and now he lives with a somewhat potentially radical Muslim girlfriend. And I'm not into Muslim phobia or Islamic phobia, but facts are facts. She's Egyptian, and there is a rumor that Kaepernick has actually converted to Islam, although it has not been substantiated. It's out there, just like there's a rumor that LeBron James has converted to Islam. He sure looks like it by the way that he dresses and his beard. It's a whole other story. So let's continue to read this. Still, there are a large number of other users who took positively to Nike taking a stand on social issues. Athletes including LeBron James and Kevin Durant showed support, posting images of Kaepernick's ad on their Instagram profiles. Kevin Durant and LeBron James will wind up playing together probably after this season. Even former Iranian president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Where did this guy come from? I mean, he's been basically in the missing persons file ever since he left Iran. All of a sudden, he's got a timely tweet. The hashtag NFL season will start this week, unfortunately, once again. At Kaepernick7 is not on an NFL roster, even though he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. That's a joke. It's totally misinformed. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was never one of the best quarterbacks. He caught lightning in a bottle. The league caught up to Colin Kaepernick. They figured out what they were doing, and he never adjusted. He never adjusted. He was never one of these guys that studied film. He was so physically gifted, he thought his physical gifts were always going to allow him to be better than whoever was around him. It wasn't the case. He's not one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Retail industry analysts were divided on whether the heat around the campaign would be a commercial positive for Nike or ultimately alienate and lose customers. The alt-right calls for a Nike boycott will fall flat, just like the boycott of Dick's Sporting Goods failed, said Matt Powell, a senior advisor with market research from NPD Group. Old, angry white guys are not a core demographic for Nike. Well, that's true. That's true. But I want to just bring this back. Here, let me get one more quote in here. This is from a different analyst. This is Global Data Retail's Neil Saunders. He said the campaign will harm Nike in Middle America, where it is in a battle against Germany's Adidas for dominance in the sneaker market. I always used to wear Adidas. That was my brand. Love the three stripes. The company's stand may go down well on its native West Coast. It will be far less welcome in many other locations. He said, I can tell you right now, it will not be a huge hit here in Flyover. That ain't happening. Maybe in California. Maybe. Nike, are they taking a risk? Or are they actually fulfilling a mandate? And the mandate being that they will promote this Saturnian symbol or a symbol of Saturnine culture. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the symbol of Baphomet, if you look at Baphomet, what is Baphomet? Baphomet is a hybrid. Baphomet is part female and part male. It has male genitalia, and Baphomet has breasts. Maybe somewhere tucked underneath the male genitalia, Baphomet might also be female. So Baphomet is hermaphroditic. And it represents this blending of duality and opposites. In Colin Kaepernick, we see some of that. We see the blending of a white Italian mother and what I believe to be a Black American father. And because she has some interesting strains in her bloodline, Colin Kaepernick comes out looking as if he's Ethiopian or Eritrean. And what's interesting is that, it was Italy that conquered Ethiopia in Eritrea, and so there was some mixed race um, coupling going on in that part of the world. And I'm not saying that the Ethiopians or Eritreans look like the way that they are because the Italians, that's not the case. I'm just telling you that that happened. My theory is that Colin Kaepernick's father is an ex-NFL football player because his mother was living in Milwaukee at the time and probably was close to some athletes in that area and maybe an ex-Packer. I have my thoughts about who it might be. I don't want to get into it right now. But anyway, he represents that, right? He's this blending. He's just like Baphomet is a hybrid species of male and female, animal and human, because Baphomet is a goat. Baphomet's also human. Baphomet's female. Baphomet's male. So it's this resolution of duality through this symbolic form, and Kaepernick represents that in his own kind of personification. He's black and he's white. He's a rebel. He's trying to be a good American, and he's got all these kind of things colliding together. So he becomes a de facto symbol of Baphomet. And as a result of that, he becomes a fetish of Saturn. And Nike is a company that is dedicated to Saturn. Look at the symbol, the swoosh. And look at their relationship with LeBron James. LeBron James is probably the most marketed athlete in Nike's stable. In fact, there's a rumor that this new school in Akron that LeBron supposedly built was actually Nike's idea, and they put the money together through LeBron James's foundation, which is all tax deductible, by the way. So Nike has an agenda, they're promoting an agenda, and they may not care if they lose money because in a lot of ways, it's a form of worship that they are actually doing a service to Baphomet, Saturnalia, the god that they worship. So they may not even care at all. And if in fact they do lose money, well, maybe it's even on some level a sacrifice that they deem worthy enough. Anyway, keep your eyes on it. Something to ponder, to think about, to decode in a strange and unusual period of time that we're currently living in. Let's see, is there anything else out there that I wanted to cover? You know, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to give people some stuff that they can use on a daily basis that could be helpful in this new version of 15 Minutes of Flame. So I just wanted to read to you very quickly the top 10 anti-inflammatory foods. Now, some of you are very well versed in health, so I'm going to read this anyway because there are some people that may not be. So here's how you can reduce inflammation in your body. You add more omega-3s, vitamin D, polyphenols, antioxidants, anthocyanins, quercetin, curcumin, and xanthines. So which foods have those inside of them? How about wild salmon? You get your omega-3, you get vitamin D, right? Salmon is a great food. It's loaded with magnesium and zinc and B vitamins. It's got some choline in there. Make sure with your salmon that it is not farm raised. Go out and get the real stuff. I like the Atlantic salmon myself. That's just me. So you want to reduce inflammation and get a lot of health benefits, salmon's your friend. Walnuts are another great source of eliminating inflammation. Let's see. Now we know that it's got a lot of selenium. Walnuts are good for you. It's good. They're high in selenium. They're also high in a form of vitamin E called gamma tocopherol. So they talk about tocopherols and sort of vitamin E So walnuts are really high in that. And I actually think that it's probably better to go and eat the foods. And if you can't eat them, of course, the supplements are pretty good. If you get good supplements, berries are another form of food, type of food that help with inflammation. So we've got the raspberries, the blackberries, strawberries. Now, Stephen Gundry says that you should eat berries in season. That eating berries out of season aren't in your best interest. So we're actually coming out of berry season. Keep that in mind. Dark leafy greens are another source of being able to deal with inflammation. So we got spinach, Swiss chard, kale, collards. You know who they are. Usual suspects. A lot of antioxidants, vitamins, and some anti-inflammatory power. How about onions? Onions have phytochemicals in them. Organosulfur. Onions are, not everybody can eat onions. I just found that onions are also laced with what's called fructans, and fructans lead to bloating. I know a lot of people will eat onions, and next thing you know, you're bloating. So you're getting the ability to deal with inflammation, but at the same time, it doesn't do well with your stomach because of the fructans. Apples. Now this one, I wasn't aware of this one, but apples actually stabilize blood sugar and insulin levels, which I thought was interesting. And they have a phytochemical in there named quercetin, which is a great antioxidant. And apples are in season. Here's another one that caught me by surprise: extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil. It's high in polyphenols. Extra virgin olive oil is also known as EVU. Doesn't that sound like one of those angels that John Dee and Edward Kelly would channel? EVU. So it's got a broad spectrum of polyphenols, an SPF spectrum. It's got vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin D. And apparently it's also quite good for dealing with type 2 diabetes and even Alzheimer's. We all know turmeric and curry, great for anti-inflammatory function. Ginger is another one. I like ginger. I'm a big ginger fan. And then red cabbage, which I thought was interesting. High in C, K, and A. Super low in calories. And I like raw cabbage. I like it raw. I don't like to cook cabbage. I like it raw, or I like it pickled, German style, like they do here in this town. But it's another source of anti-inflammatory properties and packed with all kinds of goodness. So there are 10 anti-inflammatory foods. So you're going to get something useful here when you tune into the new version of 15 Minutes of Flame. So finally, and this is what you may want to think about and talk about, perhaps in the chat room, and maybe we can pick this up tomorrow as another thread. But I was reading an article in Henry Mackau, and it was talking about how Trump is being blackmailed by the Mossad. And it has to do with his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, who has the longest face in history. I mean, I think they could, like, launch and land planes across Jeffrey Epstein's forehead. And they could go north, south, east, west. Look at that guy's face. Like, look at his face compared to Trump's face. Like, you could fit two of Trump's heads inside of Jeffrey Epstein's head. That's how big, and this guy's head, Jeffrey Epstein's head is almost like Kubrick's monolith in 2001. Talk about Saturn. Holy shit. Anyway, Henry says that Trump is being blackmailed. This is something I've talked about before. And it's one of the things that I always found that was interesting around the left. Like, why doesn't the left go after his relationship with Jeff Epstein and Pedo Island and all that stuff? Well, the reason is, and I've talked about this before, if they do that, then they pull the string and the whole thing, it just completely unwinds. This is what will happen. Now, Ken Adachi, who I actually really like, I'm going to read his comment. And for those of you who ask me, and I do get asked this, do you think Trump will eventually, lead the charge of the Light Brigade? Will he be the president that we elected him to be? These valid questions. So this is what Ken Adachi says, and I actually like Ken. He's got a very interesting website. There's a lot of information on it. So here's what he says. He says, I agree with 4 points you make at the beginning of the article. They and the Bolton appointment combined to make Trump look like he's in bed with the JWO's world conquer agenda. However, I do not believe that Trump is an evil man, nor an attendee at satanic murder rituals, nor a rapist of 13-year-old children. I think he's playing a dangerous game and wants to keep enough Zionist support in his pocket to get through an 8-year administration. So he makes concessions to feed the Shabbat zealots and keep Bibi smiling. But will he go to war against Syria to please the Zio psychos? I don't think so. Remember, this is Ken Adachi. If he does, then we'll throw Donald under the bus. But until that happens, he's still a damn sight better than the mother of darkness. You give far too much credence to utterly, in capitals, unproven allegations leveled against Trump by an accuser whose accusations and credibility are wholly untenable to even the most casual of observers. I read all the articles, which you link to the bottom of this article, and the only person who apparently buys Katie Johnson's story, hook, line, and sinker, is Tim Fitzpatrick. He has a site called the Fitzpatrick Informer. He posted his multi-part Trump diatribe on October 29th, 2016, 1 week before the election, the same month that Jane Doe, without listing address, decided to file a pro se lawsuit against Trump, alleging she was raped 22 years older. The timing just being a coincidence, I'm sure. So Ken is making kind of an assertion that Tim Fitzpatrick was probably working for the opposition at that point in time. Could be. Could be. So the question is, here's the question. Do you think Donald Trump is being blackmailed? And as a result is compromising the position of the United States for a certain country in the Middle East? Or do you think he is playing along so that at some point he can turn the tables on everybody and restore a greater degree and level of balance between us and said country and other connections related to that country, specifically one Saudi Arabia? Question mark. So if you'd like to chime in, we've got a chat on both of these channels, whether it's Spreaker or whether it's YouTube, and you can chime in with your opinion. Let's go to the chat right now. Let's see what some of the people are saying about this. Let's see what we got here. Got up late now. Just remember, the black bail is one of the few plausible reasons Trump isn't making more definitive moves. Well, chime in. Feel free to chime in, because I'm going to have, there's going to be 2 chats available, comments over on the 15 Minutes of Flame page over on YouTube. All right, so why don't we get on out of here today? I said half an hour. We're at 15 minutes. Sometimes this is the way it goes. Am I right? I think it's right. Okay, so I'm going to sign off on the YouTube side, and then I'll do my sign off on the Spreaker side. We're going to end that.